Everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. Those of you that don't know, my name is Amanda Martin and I'm the president of the National Education Union, and I wanted to say hello if you are either a seasoned rep or one of our 200 brand new reps. You're absolutely welcome, and it's so great to be able to see so many of you face to face. Very much a lot of our communication is online, so it's really great to see you. Before we start, I'm just going to give you some housekeeping as to how we're going to operate the next hour. So firstly, if you have just joined, please familiarise yourself with the behaviour code that was on the start of the chat. It's just how that we act and behave when we're at union events together. Please feel free to make comments in the chat, but there will be a questions and answer section later on in the call in the Zoom conference that you'll be able to input into. So don't put all your questions in now, wait to hear what some of the people are saying. Today we are going to be hearing from our Joint General Secretaries, Kevin Courtney and Mary Bousted. We're also going to be hearing from 9 reps around the country, giving us an overview of everyday life. So around the topics of winning in schools, building our union and education post-COVID-19. As I said, we'll have a questions and answer session, and we have a technical team of Mike, Richard, Jono and Craig on the line who will be taking your comments from the comments section and putting them in questions to me. If you want to submit a question, please put a capital Q, then who you wish the question to go to, and then what your question is, your name and where you're from, and you can say your school or you can just say your area. Please do, either during this call or after this call, check our website out. It has the most amazing amount of information on with regards to, and we are constantly updating it all of the time. And it just really leaves me to say, this is my 3rd one of these. No, it doesn't leave me to say that. We are recording this as well. If you do not wish to be on our recording, we need to record it so those members that can't see it are able to access later, and also so we can use it later. If you don't wish to be on the recording, there are 2 things you can do. One is to take the call out, take your video off so I can't see you. You can just hear us, so there's no picture of yourself. Or the other way is to come out of the call completely. That's up to you. But we will be recording just so that you're aware. It leaves me one other thing to do then. This is the 3rd one of these 3 that I've done in the last 2 days. One to the executive yesterday, one with our branch and district reps. But to me, this is absolutely the most important and vital one, because it's to reps who are in schools. I'm a teacher myself, and the school rep is absolutely the vital person in this, in the communication with your local branches and with the union nationally. So thank you all so very much. I'm massively proud to be the president of the union, and particularly at this time when all of you are working so hard. So I'm going to pass over to Mary and to Kevin to give you a background introduction of where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, and good afternoon, everyone. And just like Amanda, this is the most important call because we're here talking to our members who represent and negotiate and work for other members in schools and colleges, and we're delighted to be talking to you all today. This is a terrible global pandemic, a terrible crisis, and it's a terrible time for the world. But we are really proud of what the National Education Union has achieved since the start of this pandemic. We have really led the way in informing, educating, supporting our members. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, Kevin and I did a film which asked Boris Johnson to explain what the modelling was behind the spread of the pandemic, and made the argument, made the call that not only should all school staff in vulnerable groups not be in school, but also all those who lived with people who are in vulnerable groups, shouldn't be in school. We were the first union to make that call, and that demand has stuck. We've won that demand because we said you shouldn't go to school and then endanger your loved ones by probably bringing COVID-19 or possibly bringing COVID-19 home. So that was really important, keeping people safe. We've got a brilliant website. It's really easy to use. You'll get the answers to nearly all the questions you want to ask on the website. And we've done 3 member town hall meetings where members could get on the phone and just talk to me and Kevin, where they've been, over 3,000 members have been calling us during those 3 member town hall meetings. So we're really getting the message out to members. Some of you will have been school reps and college reps for a long time. Some of you will be COVID-19 reps. You've just joined up because you've asked you to. You've stepped up during this crisis. And Kevin and I want to say, we think you are heroes. You're not only doing the job in schools and colleges yourselves, but you're there representing and working for all the members in your schools. And we think that you're doing a fantastic job. And we want to thank you for being brave and being courageous and doing the job you're doing and working for other members. One really important document, which we really urge you to make use of, is the joint guidance that we've written with the NEHT and with ASCL. This has really been important, particularly when we've been dealing with school leaders or college leaders who haven't been doing the right things, who've been, for example, saying that all staff should be in school, or staff should be into deep clean, or that TAs have got to be in school every day, whether or not they are needed to work with children. So this joint guidance has been really important around how you negotiate, what's our reasonable expectations, how staff should be treated, the fact that the minimum number of children should be in school. It's really, really important guidance, and many people have found that really useful when they've been able to say to school leaders, if they are in the NEHT or in ASCL, well, look at what your own union's saying, look what your own union has signed up to. We've also got great advice on our website about special schools and about hubs. But the final thing I want to say is there's an all-member email going out today. And that all-member email is explaining to all members about what Ofqual has said today about exams, about GCSEs and A-levels. Now, the NEU have really influenced Ofqual's guidance. And the key thing we've managed to achieve is we got Ofqual to agree that teacher grades should be based on work that was done by pupils before schools closed. And the reason why this is so important is for two reasons. First of all, it means that we're not leaving students and pupils who don't have access to the internet, who don't have parents who can help them, who've probably got caring responsibilities for younger children. We're not leaving them to struggle on with work where they've got none of the support they would normally get in school or college, because we know that will impact most heavily on the most vulnerable students. And secondly, that advice is so important because it's saying to teachers who take GCSE, AS and A-level classes, you're not going to be doing a load of new work. The work that has already been done is what you should base your teacher predictions on. So that email is going out today, and then there'll be more guidance on the website next week. And finally, on the website, because we know this will be a huge issue in schools, there's really good advice on what is reasonable to expect in terms of distance learning and what is not reasonable to expect in terms of distance learning. And that advice is on the website. There may be more questions on that later, so I won't say any more about that now, but really go to the NEU website for the key advice, whether you're in an independent school, a special school, a college, primary, secondary, whether you're support staff, whether you're a leader, whether you're a teacher. You will find separate sections for the area, for the school that you're working in, for the sector that you're working in, for the role that you do. And that's the place where you're going to get really good NEU advice, which you can use to make your working life better and to help your fellow members in your schools and your colleges. So that's all I wanted to say in the introduction. I'd like to hand over to Kevin.
So I'll just say a couple of things about some different groups of members, as well as the ones that Mary's spoken about. First of all, our colleagues who are supply teachers or agency TAs. We had a phone conference call with them at the beginning of the week with more than 1,000 of those colleagues on the line. They're obviously facing the potential loss of income. We're really pleased that we've got good advice out now with NEHT and ASCL, which urges schools to continue the employment of supply teachers or agency TAs that were working there previously. We've got that in place with some local authorities as well. So if that's something you can raise in your school, we'd really appreciate it. We're hearing concerns from our members who are school direct or newly qualified teachers, school direct teachers finishing their beginning first year and not having a job yet for September. So asking us questions about how are they going to get a job in September. So we're going to get really good advice out about the interview process That's going to have to be an online or a Skype interview. They're not going to do practice lessons, but we'd really like to urge school reps to talk to those NQTs or school direct, whether they're in the union or not, to tell them we've got good advice, to ask them to join if they want to. And then a third, final group of members are members in independent schools. Quite a lot of them facing some real difficulties. Parents saying they won't pay the school fees for next term if the school's not running. So those members facing potential redundancy, we're trying to stop that and make sure that those schools use the furlough scheme that the government has got as an alternative. So we're doing work on all those areas. We just wanted to say, before we open up to some fantastic reps we've got on the call, that the work of workplace reps is incredibly important at the moment. Like Mary said, we've recruited well over 200. I think it's nearer 300 now, COVID-19 reps. People have come forward in the last couple of weeks. That's really impressive. We've got about 10,000 reps, and our staff are now beginning a process of trying to ring every rep. So you will hopefully get a phone call from a member of staff in the next few weeks. We've spoken to, I believe, more than 700 now since Tuesday afternoon. And those, what we're being told by school reps who've had those calls is they're really appreciating them. They get a chance to talk with a member of staff about the detail of what's going on in their school. And we're going to try and ring every rep across the next period. And the last thing I want to say to you is the work you're doing at school level is really putting us in a position where we can influence things at national level. So we are now in weekly talks with the Secretary of State for Education. At one stage, he was keeping us out and only wanting to talk to NAHT and ASCL. And we went to him and said, look, we've got 4,000 members on these calls. We've got this network of reps. What we're saying is actually what's happening in lots of schools. And then we said that we'd expose the fact that he wasn't talking to us. So we're now in those talks. We're using that to influence what Ofqual is doing. So we're able to make some changes at a national level, but it really is only because of your strength at workplace level that we have got that leverage up that way. So like Mary said, it's a terrible place the world is in and our country's in. We are aiming for a really high moral stance. We've said that vulnerable people shouldn't be in school. We've said the families of vulnerable people who might take the virus home to them shouldn't be in school. We're confident that's the right moral stance to take. And we're also saying that we do want to play our part in keeping the schools open for the children of doctors and nurses if they can't be anywhere else. So we are encouraging people to go in and be on those rotas if they're not in those vulnerable categories. And we think that high moral stance gives us some rights to assert things at school level. It gives us the right to assert. If we're going to be there, it gives us the right to assert it's going to be clean. It gives us the right to assert that vulnerable people shouldn't be there. Our high moral stance is giving us, and your organisation is giving us the power to make some changes for people at workplace level. So thank you really sincerely from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for what you've been doing. We've kept some people alive because of the work that we've done and you've done in the past few weeks, and we want to carry on working on that with you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, and just echo everything that Kevin and Mary have said there. Right, just as we move on to the second part of the conference call today, I want to remind you that although there may be some specific casework questions come up, this isn't to do with caseworking in specifics. What we're trying to do is looking at organising in your schools and how together you can work. There are routes that you can go through casework, which is to do with the advice line email and your local reps, and I'll sum that up at the end. But what I'm going to want to do now is I want to hear from some of our reps out there. Some of them are brand new, so absolutely brilliant for you guys. One is Sonia Malik. She is a new rep in Redbridge. One is Curtis Oliver. He is a new rep in Warwickshire. I've got Carly Singsby from London and Candy also from London. So if Mike, you can unlock all of those microphones, please, for me, that would be great. Sonia, and she's not unlocked yet. So, okay, any of you of those four that I've called out unlocked, would you please start talking? Candice, are you unlocked?
I'm unlocked.
Okay, Candice, would you like to start? Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I'm from a school in London, and I've only been a rep for 2 weeks. but it was imperative that we got a union presence in our school, as the staff were feeling very vulnerable. They were unsure of their position and how they could best protect themselves. So there's 3 reps in our school, and collectively we met with the SLT to raise those concerns. One of them being staff members were feeling intimidated into being in school. They wanted all staff there, whether or not, and then we could discuss our circumstances. London, that's a question there, sorry. And so we also have a lot of agency staff who felt pressured into coming in, and that they were being held to financial ransom, that if they didn't turn up, they wouldn't be paid. So we had to take those issues forward, and we managed to secure that the rota was on a voluntary basis. So you had to give permission to be on the rota rather than being forced to be on it. And we managed to secure full pay for anyone who was agency but had been a member of staff for longer than 12 weeks.
Excellent.
So we left that feeling a lot more confident, and our members were happy. Although there's still a long way to go, but we're happy now.
Thank you, Candice, very much.
Brilliant.
Sobia Malik, can I ask you to come in? You are a new rep from Redbridge.
Hello, my name is Sobia Malik and I'm a rep at Seven Kings School in Redbridge. I was asked to share my success story with several reps and union members. So here's one of my stories. So during the crisis, there's quite a lot of demands from SLT in terms of expectations for teachers. One of them being about homeschool learning and what that looks like. So parents had obviously expressed their concerns about communication. So SLT took it upon themselves to ask teachers to ring parents using their personal mobile phones on a weekly basis. As you can imagine, a lot of members were quite upset about this, having to use their own phones. It's breaching GDPR, and that is increasing workload as well. And as a union and as a rep, we took a stand and used the joint union advice guideline to tackle this issue. Unfortunately, we were successful. SLT were forced to lower their expectations, and it was a win for us. Since then, members see that there is a real power in the union and impact, and how collective power is really the way forward. We're hoping to establish ourselves further as a school, as reps, and our next challenge will be tackling about performance management reviews and what they look like going forward. Hopefully, it will be another victory for us, but we'll keep people posted. Thank you.
Well done, Deborah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And can I take Curtis from Warwickshire?
Yeah, hi. So I'm in my NQT year, and just before Christmas I became a rep. I don't like an injustice when I see one. And one of the first things that occurred, the staff was talking about a red card system that we had in our school, where a student runner would come from the admin, and they would provide a physical red card 10 minutes into the lesson for teachers that had not submitted their register on SIMS. It was a safeguarding thing. In front of the class, the class would jeer, make a big stance about it. And it, because of the attendance had started to drop towards the 95%, school ramped it up and they started running reports at the exact 10-minute mark. And SLT started coming around and providing these red cards instead of these student runners. So we had SLT using all of their time coming to teachers with these red cards saying you hadn't done, obviously, your register. So it was the first time our school had wrote a response, like a statement. We demanded that they were rescinded on the basis of them being really bad, obviously, for morale and panic. The school had said that they were the first priority, that our register taking was more important than inviting the kids in and getting them onto their first task. So, you know, the behavior went downhill very quickly. There wasn't a response from SLT, so we decided again to send another response saying that we would happily, with our members, do an indicative vote on the basis that we didn't want to work under these conditions. So we had a meeting, and it was with the safeguard lead and the head teacher of the school, and they said that they had listened to our concerns, They decided to change the card into a white card. It was going to come at 15 minutes rather than 10. The 10-minute point would be a Sims reminder instead. They would go back to the student runners doing it, that there would be a reason at the bottom for why there might be a reason why we went over that 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Because one of the biggest issues with it, if we got 3 red cards within a week, there would be a disciplinary. And that was one of the biggest points in which we said we can't have that. So that formal process was taken completely away, and they said that they would not record how many that we were being given. So it was a massive win, and it was one that was a bit of a roller coaster in my NQT year and being a new rep. But it was one we were really proud of.
Yeah.
You should be, Curtis. That is just absolutely brilliant work. Well done. Can I ask Carly Slingsby from London to speak next?
Hi everyone, I'm a rep in a school in Hackney, and before all of this coronavirus crisis was starting, when there were just whisperings of us possibly closing, I went and informally asked our head teacher if she'd be paying our agency staff, and she said no. So I then called a meeting, and at the meeting I made sure I had loads of iPads out and just told everyone who was there, pretty much sign up now, we're your best hope of getting you paid. We discussed loads of negotiating points and went into the head, and she agreed to everything, including making sure that they would get paid no matter what. And then afterwards they created a rota, and the rota was absurd. It had 14 members of staff in at one time. So we got back together again, went back with more negotiations, and she agreed to take it down to 4 people per day. Then we managed to get it down to only those who can cycle, walk or drive there. And since then we've set up a WhatsApp group for our members, and we've been doing some Zoom calls as well to make sure we stay in touch, and really to just try and keep that sense of community that we've had at school. It's really odd not seeing everyone's faces every day, so trying to make sure we stay in touch and in the loop. And that's been really helpful, the WhatsApp group as well, because sometimes what comes through from SLT at school is very slow, but anyone who's there on the ground on that rota day can get back in touch with us. I'm also the admin for our reps WhatsApp group in Hackney, and that has been really helpful because everyone, it's sort of like a feedback system. People come there, tell us their problems, we log it with the officers help them, and the members on there are growing, the reps on there are really growing in confidence as well, because all of us have been trawling the Facebook pages, the other WhatsApp groups, the NEU website, and just feeding information into that. And Kevin's post about there will be trouble, we'll see you in court was definitely helpful as well, and boosting confidence of a lot of the members to have a go with their heads.
Thank you, and thank you very much. Now, we've got some questions coming in for you guys. So if you activists that have just spoken on the line, there is a question firstly for Sobia. So it's from Angela. You mentioned that teachers are no longer required to contact students on a weekly basis from personal mobiles. Are teachers still required to contact students through a different method, i.e. via work emails?
What we're trying to do is tackle that at the moment. What we've been asked to do is to use our work emails to contact those parents. However, this also leads in with overload of work. So what we're trying to do is find and negotiate with SLT about how we can tackle that. And one of the ways by doing that is any vulnerable children or children that we feel that may need more support in this time. SLT have then taken it upon themselves to ring those parents because some of them are still at school with other vulnerable children. So that's probably the way forward. And we have got access to Google Classroom. So any parents that need support, we're able to also provide that to them through that platform.
Okay, thank you. There was also another one for you as well. What was your angle about GDPR and around using mobile phones? What was the angle you took with management?
So we spoke about how that's breaching GDPR. Of course, teachers should not be using their personal phones to ring parents. It's not something that we would do on a norm. So it certainly shouldn't be with the way forward now. What we had said is that, you know, there are other means of contact in terms of email, in terms of if there's something that's absolutely an emergency and parents need to contact us, we still have phones at work that parents can ring so they can speak to somebody at home. We've also set up year group support emails which they can use to contact teachers as well. And hopefully that's avoiding, you know, these constant calls having to be made. So through email, really.
Brilliant, and thank you so much. It's really good to hear from someone who's not only just looking at our advice, but actually using it in their school to a really good effect. I've got a question for Carly. This is from Sam. What was your head's resistance to taking people off the rota due to using public transport?
There wasn't too much resistance, to be honest. She was quite open to it, I think, because quite a number of our staff live locally anyway. I think the only question was of fairness. Obviously, some of us getting to work from home consistently rather than those who might be on the rota, say, for weeks on end. But it looks like they're having enough staff volunteers for it to be quite fair in the end.
Brilliant. And thank you so much to all of those, particularly those new ones. I bet you thought 2 weeks ago you would not be on a Zoom conference call to over 400 people telling us what great work you're doing and how you really are, you know, what our union is about, lay officials and lay members. Okay, so I'm going to go on to building our strength across schools. And this time, Mike, would you lock off the mics of those people just spoken, and could you open Vic Checkies from the Northwest, Emma Parker from the Northern region, and Rob Owen from London, please. Okay, if one of you is unlocked already, because I can't see all of you at the moment. Is that Checky? Vic, would you like to go first, please? Thanks, Vic. Hiya, Vic.
Hello, Amanda. Thank you. So I'm the lead rep for the Club Academies Trust. So that covers 25 schools in the north of England. So we've had some really big successes negotiated on things like ensuring that supply workers are on full pay and really putting forward health and safety as well. So how have we done that? Key to any sort of collective bargaining is deepening the negotiating cycle as well as involving members as much as possible along the way, ensuring that the employer is consulting you every step of the way as well. So how have we done that? We set up a WhatsApp network for reps, which has 19 reps. So we did a bit of a map exercise. That's a constant source of advice, questions, but also gives us an idea of what members are thinking. So when we go into negotiation with the employer, I don't go as my own, I go representing a whole volume of members as well. Also, what's really important is that members within the individual schools also have a line of communication as well. So you're giving them a sense of ownership and agency of the win successes that you're getting. So what that means is that rather than just being a rep, you're collectively bringing in all the views and opinions of members as well. So you're encouraging high participation as well. That's really important. I'll give you an example. So the off-call announcement came out today. Within 3 hours, our reps network contacted each other. We contacted members. Within 3 hours, we got a response and what we thought to our trust, whilst welcoming the emphasis on teacher judgment, but also our concerns around the impact on Black students, working class students, in terms of predictions as well. So whilst those guidances from the employer are already being made up, we're being proactive enough to make sure that influencing it before any official guidance comes out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emma Parker, are you there?
I am. I'm here. Right. So I am the branch and joint district secretary in Durham. In Durham, we have 256 schools and 4,000 members. And what I wanted to talk about today is what the impact that you've had as reps in Durham. With 4,000 members, it's incredibly difficult to speak to that many people in the middle of a pandemic. The impact that you've had has been phenomenal. We've had so many wins. At the start of pandemic, we had a really big issue with our local authority. They were refusing to allow anybody who lived with or cared for in that vulnerable group out of school. Because of the dialogue you had with me, I was able to kind of build up a huge picture and say, look, we are going to pull everybody out. We had reps we've had a very open and transparent communication policy in Durham since the start. And what we've done is we've put everything that we've wrote and everything we've sent to members, we've said, it on social media, give it to your head teacher, give it to your colleagues, no matter what union they are in school. And you've done that. And that's been huge. I mean, in Durham, in the last 2 weeks, we've gained 120 members. We've gained 12 new reps. We have won on so many different fronts. We have got all of those people in the vulnerable group out because of you, because you have fed into me. So I knew, and the other officers in Durham knew what our focus had to be. We have got workload reduced. We have been able to sort rotas out where only TAs were rotated into school and classroom teachers were at home. We've been able to organise rotas where we were having 20 members of staff in for 6 children. The only way I could focus on those huge issues was because I had reps on the ground feeding into me what the issues were and giving me that clarity. And I can't get across how important you are for the district. You're the heart of the union. You know, we work for you, and you need to tell us and speak to us and give us that dialogue.
Thank you very much, Emma, and I think that's absolutely a sentiment that's been echoed by myself, Karen, and Mary. And thank you, Vic, for your contributions. We don't have, oh, we do have one question in now. Do we? No, we don't have any questions in for you guys at the moment, but there may well be some come in once we've heard from our final 2 in this section. They are Faye Lockett from London and Emma Walks from the West Midlands, and they are looking at education post-COVID-19 and what that means. So, Faye, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Thanks, Faye. Would you start? Thank you.
So it's really important, I think, at the moment that we think about the curriculum and the way that we're teaching our students, whether that be primary, whether it be secondary or post-16. And I think the crisis has actually exposed a number of elements in our education system that the NEU have argued against for a long time. High stakes testing, knowledge-based curriculum, and that fragmentation of education as well. And although we're going to be faced with many challenges over the next few months, I think what we've got to ensure is that there is no going back to what has been taking place in schools before they're closed. This idea that actually we've got to see children as numbers, and we've got to get exams out of them, and that will contribute to the league tables in schools. So I would say at the moment that we've been given an opportunity in a crisis to actually begin to consider that child-centred curriculum and go back to a lot of work that NEU members will have started already to really understand what is important that our students are learning. And I think we really need to begin to encourage members and reps to read about more radical education and pedagogy and look out for ways to develop that. So last year there was a fantastic conference called Celebrating Education, which obviously took place in with people meeting up, but using Zoom as a way to explore some of these ideas that we can then go into our departments and into our teams at work and try to implement more creative ways for education, so that if we can discover this within online learning, we can then consider how we would apply that into the classroom when we go back into schools. So I think we've really got to consider that when we come back in September, if they are trying to build up this idea of exam-based curriculum, we've got to come together and really be ready for that argument to say that it's not working and we don't want to go back to where we were before.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Emma, please, to contribute?
Yeah, thank you. So I was asked to talk about education post-COVID-19, and I think it's really clear that whatever happens, it's not business as usual at the moment, and we cannot go back to business as usual. And just like Faye was saying, I think a lot of the things that we've been talking about as an education union, we have to now kind of build on that and push for that and be talking to our members in our workplaces, because every time I see somebody saying, you know, what are the union doing? What does the union think about this? We're the union, the members in our schools are the union, and we need to be taking this opportunity to really shape the agenda and to really think about what do we want education to look like post COVID-19? What are we going to be going back to, and how do we really build and talk to our members about that? You know, I'm a secondary school teacher, and I've just seen the advice today about ranking our students, and it's great. You know, we've had a big impact on what's come out today from the DFE, but I think, you know, we can do more. We know how unfair the examination system is. We know that we're working in a system where our students are put in a rank order and then grades are rationed. And we say to our students, you have to get a 4 in English or maths, yet the system is designed so that a certain percentage of students will never be able to get that 4 in English and maths because the grades are rationed. So how do we start to break that system? How do we use this time now, take the opportunities that we've got in order to push for a system that we know is fairer for our students? And hearing the successes from reps today and knowing about the wins that are happening in the workplace, hopefully it just makes people realise the collective strength that we have and what we can actually do as a union and what we can do as a collective. And so let's use this time to start talking to our members, to start talking in our workplaces about what we want education to look like. Let's not wait for the DFE to tell us what it's going to look like. Let's start building, talking, formulating, coming up with ideas amongst our members in our workplaces, and feeding that back through our districts, through our branches, to our secretaries, to our exec members, back up to Kevin and Mary, and saying, you know, what do we want it to look like? What do we want the future to look like? And build on that and fight for that and win it.
Thank you very much, Emma. And I just wanted to say that we were due to have Rob Owen talk. Unfortunately, he's had to take his partner into hospital. He is okay, but I just wanted to recognise that he didn't just not turn up to be part of it. So we send our very best wishes to Rob. I've got a question for Emma. Emma Parker, this is, and I've also got a question for Vic. So can you unlock Emma Parker and Vic, please, Mike, while I read out these questions? So the one for Emma Parker is from Fiona from Derby. I applaud your praise for Durham members and reps, but we also need to ensure that we appear to be reasonable about vulnerable students. We do care about them. Our duty is still to them, surely. It's about balancing the risk and negotiate to mitigate that, surely, not just a simple pull them out. So that's for Emma. And then for Vic, while we wait for your microphone to be unlocked, it is from Roz in Sefton. How do you make sure that reps and members pick up the organising in individual workplaces rather than relying on perception of centralised services from the union? Emma Parker, are you unlocked? Vic, are you? Okay, I've got a further question as well for Faye or Emma, for Carly. So again, what would you advise be for schools that will apply pressure to teachers to close the ever-widening gap? Vic, can you start with your question first, please?
Yeah, great question, Ros. For any sort of collective bargaining, it needs to be bottom up, it needs to be member led. So as someone who's a lead rep, what we're doing is empowering the reps in the school. So what we're looking for is for them to have their own sort of up-to-date, mapped out mailing list of WhatsApp. So they're the ones that are organising on the ground. So any sort of successes you're sharing with them. So through this period, what we're doing is building those strong networks in schools, developing experience of the reps in the schools, to bring through a new layer of activists. So when we go back and when schools reopen, hopefully soon, we'll be in a much stronger position to answer the real big, profound questions about education that's been raised by sort of previous speakers on high-stake testing and Ofsted and all of that.
Okay, thanks very much, Vic. That was a really comprehensive answer. Okay, I've got Emma Parker. Are you on now? Can you hear me? Is that Emma Parker?
Oh, no, I'm here now.
Okay, Emma, did you hear the question that was set to you from Fiona?
I did. I'll apologise. I think I may not have explained it properly. I'm actually a SEND teacher and have 3 children with SEND, so I absolutely agree that we've got to be doing the best for those vulnerable children. When I was talking about the vulnerable group, I was talking about those marked as vulnerable for medical conditions and who had family members and cared for those, and they were being forced to go into work, raising the risk of bringing it home and getting a family member really poorly. That was the group I was talking about.
Okay, thanks very much. All right, brilliant. Thank you for that. We'll now go to our questions to Kevin and Mary, and we've got quite a few. I'm just finding my question 1. Here we go. Henry, can you send me question 1, please? Rather than me go all the way back. 654. Sorry. Schools are. So I'm going to go with this one. Schools are still expecting staff to go in, even if you are classed as any age member of vulnerable groups with an underlying health condition, even their partners? So that's one of the questions. Question 3, is this from Agnieszka, is this not a good time to start building a campaign against performance-related pay? Once we are back in school, heads will try to get back to appraisals as normal, and there'll be a lot of will in members to oppose this. Can we be channeled to not just address this year's issues, but fight for the improvements in conditions? And a third one, with Ofqual guidance coming out, has Ofqual given any guidance for children who are unhappy with their grades? Also, as far as we are aware, will it apply to those resitting GCSEs? So, Kevin, do you want to start with those? One of those?
Could I start on that vulnerable
Yeah.
people one?
Yes, of course you can.
Because we have to acknowledge that the advice we're giving is not the same as the government's advice, but our advice is holding sway in most places in the country. So the government, to some extent, and Public Health England, to some extent, they talk about the shielded category of vulnerable people. And we are saying people on a much wider category of vulnerable people should be at home, and people who are families of people. So we think that if you are a teacher and you are living with your 75-year-old parents, that you shouldn't be in work, because 75-year-olds have a really high chance of being seriously hurt by the coronavirus. And so it's both protecting them, and if they get unwell, then they take a bed in ICU, and that makes it worse for everybody else as well. So we start the other way round with this. We say, the government says people should be at home, working from home if they possibly can. And then, as Carly from Hackney was saying, actually there are enough volunteers on the rota for people in those categories not to be in work. They can work from home. So we're saying on that basis, they shouldn't be in work. And actually that advice is holding in lots of places. And if it's not holding in your school yet, I would appeal to you to talk to your branch secretary. You can find their number on the back of your card. Find out what's happening in other schools in your area. See if your branch secretary's got a WhatsApp group you can join, so you can ask what's happening in other, in the other areas around you. Because we're finding that many heads are just taking the sensible approach that people don't have to be in. So we're not taking no for an answer on it. We're saying it's not sensible, if you have a child with asthma, for you to be putting them at risk and putting the NHS at risk. If there are enough people to be in on the rota, we think there's another way to do it. And so that's where we're starting on that question. And I think that does lead on a bit to the question of what happens when we go back to school. Because I think lots of people are now most head teachers are behaving very sensibly. And we've got good relationships, and a vast majority of head teachers are behaving sensibly. Some of them are being quite horrible still. And I think a lot of people who've stood up to a horrible head now over this question of, should I be putting my child at risk by being in school, will also think they can stand up to them. You know, if they've stood up collectively now and got a more sensible position, then we can stand up collectively in the new scenario and get a more sensible position as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Mary?
So I think that what Kevin has just said there is really important, that we must not lose the new confidence that we have. The NEU's being, so significant in national guidance, and because the situation has been so extreme, people have had to stand up for themselves and had to change what's happening in schools. So you're absolutely right. When we go back, how could you do appraisal when you go back and performance-related pay when what would that, there's no evidence on which to base it. And in fact, we now think that performance-related pay is starting to go. We now have got the school leaders unions, ASCL and the NHT, saying they don't want to do performance-related pay anymore. They realise it's a load of nonsense. They realise that they can't simmer down the complexity of teaching and learning into a decision about which teachers should progress. We've got the pay review body saying there needs to be, and the government saying there needs to be a reintroduction of teacher pay scales, which they say should be advisory and we say should be compulsory. And the NEU says, and now ASCL and the NHT agree, unless you're on capability, you should go up through the pay scales because you've earned that. So that's the position that we really need to stand. And I think that will change. The whole discourse in school will change. About Ofqual, there will be guidance, there will be resits for children and their parents largely who are unhappy with the grades that they get for teacher assessment. Those Ofqual are saying that those exams will take place in the autumn term. We don't know what they'll look like yet, but the key thing we're saying there to our members, and Amanda did a video for parents and for students about a week ago, which was being really well viewed, which said very clearly, your teachers are the experts. We know how to assess you. We want to be honourable. We want to give you an accurate grade, and we're the experts in doing that. And one of the things that can come out of this, and Emma talked about this in her section, Emma Moore, was around now is, and a rep talked about it, I've forgotten her name, but talked about it really well. Now is the time when we go back, and this is some of the work that the union will be doing. We've got through the building blocks of most of the questions that people are asking immediately. But when we come back after Easter, what we're going to be turning our attention to is what sort of education system do we want to work in? Do we want to work in one which is just exam after exam after exam? Do we want to work with this curriculum which is just based around memorisation and rote learning? Do we want to be third in the world of league tables for rote learning in our classrooms? Or do we want to be doing something different? What do we want to be supporting teacher assessment? How do we want to work as a profession? And I'll tell you this, there's a strong feeling amongst our members, teachers and support staff and leaders, that when we go back, we will not go back to being punched down, to being told what to do by government and by others. We will go back, and if we've been relied upon, and if we are heroes now for the work we're doing now, then we're not going back to the old ways of being downtrodden by unreasonable government diktats, an unreasonable education system which does so much harm to our members and so much harm to the children and young people they teach and they support.
Thank you, Mary, and can't agree with that more. I've got some more questions coming in. I can answer this one. Will there be online rep training as face-to-face training can't take place? Any of you that have done our brilliant rep training will know that it's a good 10-day course across the time. We are not going to deliver 10 days online, because how would we be asking teachers not to do that if we're going to expect our staff to do that? But we are looking to put together some webinars of 60 to 90 minutes over Easter, and then we'll be feeding back to you on those as to how you'll be able to access those from there. So that's John Hegarty's department, and that's exactly what's going to be happening with that. I've got a question 5. That's for the panel, so I'm just going to go with Mary's one. So question 5 to the panel: what can we say to heads who are still asking for videos for YouTube? So I think Kevin and Mary can answer that as well. So what can we say to heads who are still asking for videos for YouTube? That's Nicola Hawkins in Cumbria. And
that's very easy. No.
Thank you.
And I think we can say that as time goes on, it's becoming more and more clear that those sorts of things are completely unpractical, that parents don't want them, that there has to be a different style of education going forward. And look at the joint NHT, ASCL, NEU advice, which says that it can't be education as normal, and says that we have to be cognizant of the fact that many teachers who are at home with children themselves. And they can't just, and then say no. Tell them some good examples, some good reasons, and then say we're not doing it.
I agree. Go to
the website.
Yeah, go to Mary's answer of no, Kevin's answer of this is becoming unreasonable. And actually there are some really good practices out there of schools that aren't doing that and are still catering to their kids that are at home and making sure they're still part of their school community. My own school, St Jude's, look it up on Twitter, are doing a brilliant job. I've got one. Kirsty Williams mentioned a more formal way and expectations to set work in the summer term for school. Do you have any more information on what she's referring to? And then I've got from Caroline Henry: should secondary teachers be using their mobile phones or Skype to contact parents of vulnerable pupils? And then I'll give you one more. I have concerns about the impact this will have on year 10, who will be in their final GCSE year in September, but have missed potentially an entire term of teaching. How will the loss of time be addressed? Can we mitigate against the inevitable impact on their learning and their exams?
So, Kirsty Williams, we don't know what she means by more formal setting and teaching. We've got a very good Welsh office. We will be keeping in touch with them and we'll find out what she means. And if it's not doable, we'll be opposing that, absolutely. And absolutely, you shouldn't be using your own mobile phones. You should not be using your own mobile phones. And the rep earlier was talking about stopping that in her school. And Kevin's got a really good answer about the times on GCSEs.
Kevin?
Well, I mean, it's sort of repeating back the point, really. There are 6 terms in years 10 and year 11. One of them is the exam term. So there's 5 teaching terms. And we've missed a term we will have missed a term and a half. So there's only 3.5 terms. We can't possibly have the same curriculum for those exams. So we don't know what the solution is going to be. We want to talk with Ofqual, but they cannot expect, when we get back in September, fingers crossed that we are back by September. Nobody thinks we're going to get back sooner, I don't think, but fingers crossed that we are back by September. But that term is going to be pretty weird as well. You know, we're going to have a lot to manage in schools. Imagine those year 7 kids starting who've been out of school. I mean, they're going to be really pleased to be in school, I think, having been locked down for ages. But I don't know what sort of behaviour issues we're going to have in the schools in next term. We can't think that's going to be a normal term. So Ofqual is going to have to do something. They'll have to either not have the exams and do something else next year, or they'll have to radically reduce the curriculum requirements and offer far more choices. We should not now be thinking that we are trying to deliver to those year 10 students a term's worth of exam work. It can't happen like that. And Ofqual they're starting to begin that conversation, and there'll have to be big changes for those exams for next summer. Not just for year 10. I mean, if they tried to do the SATs, that would be a disaster. We think they shouldn't run the SATs next year for this year's year 5s. We think they shouldn't run them ever, but we think they shouldn't run them for next year's year 5s. And, you know, the same argument will apply there.
Okay, thank you. Jenny from Somerset, I'm not going to ask you a question because it's very similar to Kevin's and what we've covered on Ofqual and Ofsted and performance table going forward. And I think exactly what Mary and Kevin are saying, if we don't have league tables this year, we don't need them next year or ever again. So that's going to be our push forward. I've got a question from Emma Davis. I'm concerned that Ofqual decisions will mean that teachers are ranking their students by awarding grades and not assessing them. How can we raise the concerns around the need for genuine teacher assessment, not unequal ranking? That's the year 10 one. My school intends to run end of year exams online and require teachers to mark them. Well, I'm just going to say no to that straight away. You need to contact your local representative and we will absolutely get in touch, because that is not what the guidance has now said. And that's from Alex Briggs. Question 14. Yeah,
can I intervene there? The most powerful thing you can say to your school management there is, so how are the 30% of kids in your school who don't have access to the internet going to do those online exams?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Absolutely. Will the NEU and other unions be lobbying Ofqual? Oh no, that's Jenny. Sorry, there's millions of questions coming in here. So, question: isn't it now the time to be talking about teacher assessment, not grade and ranking? So again, it's a similar question. Surely want to get rid of GCSEs. Some staff. This is another one. Some staff members have voluntarily uploaded content videos for their students on Twitter. While I know we don't have to, some people are wanting to. Last one for this section. Any guidance on how BTEC students will fare at the end of this academic year? A lot of talk is around GCSEs and A-levels, not BTEC.
So can I just do the BTEC one? We do know that, and we know that we're unfortunately Ofqual have not been as quick off the mark about BTEC and about vocational exams as they have about GCSEs and A-levels. The reason for that is because they're not taken by as many students, and the other reason for that is vocational always gets thought about second, which is a disgrace. So we haven't got as much information, but what I would say is because BTEC has always been a qualification where there is much more teacher assessment, it's much more entrenched into, and much better. I mean, my daughter did a BTEC and loved it. Then, you know, I think teachers who teach those vocational qualifications, A, there'll be much more work to base your judgment on, and B, you'll be much more confident in doing so. But as soon as we get the information about BTEC, we will. And the thing about rank ordering and teaching, Ofqual are the regulator, but there is going to be a strong emphasis on how do you rank order? You rank order on your teacher assessment. Now, we have said in our response that teachers will be unhappy with rank ordering, particularly if that just then leads to correlation against comparative outcomes. But so we will be continuing to negotiate with Ofqual about that.
And can I say something about the uploading of videos to YouTube? I mean, first of all, there are loads of questions coming in, which is fantastic, but we can't possibly answer them all. We will, I mean, lots of them are answered on the FAQs on the website, and they are being updated actually on a daily basis. And we're also putting on the website, at the end of every day, we put this thing, NEU talking points for the day, and that's sort of integrating, that's updated every day. So do have a look at that on a daily basis and read through the points there. Sometimes they're a bit repetitive because we say the same thing day after, but they are changing day by day as well. And lots of the things people are asking about are in there. The question of precisely how we're going to support students next term, we think that we should be supporting students next term, and we should be supporting parents who've got kids at home next term. And we think teacher ingenuity and support staff as well is the key to how we do that. We can say some things that are absolutely wrong and shouldn't happen. So we do hear extreme stories sometimes. We've heard recently of a teacher who said that she has to be up and online for a Skype meeting at 8:15 every morning, and it's either a departmental meeting or a full staff meeting. That is completely ridiculous, and we're saying no to that. We've seen some primary schools that have sent out timetables for the children, and we can all see there might be some argument for helping parents have some structure for their children, but things that are really structured down to, we want you to do 20 minutes of spag with your child at this particular point, we think that's crazy. But if some teacher somewhere wants to do something on YouTube, there's a question of whether they're setting the bar for everybody else. But if they aren't involved in that sort of setting work, bringing it in, marking it, then we're going to live and learn this stuff about what works best. We want your ideas about how best to support our students during the summer as well. We don't want work being set and marked and creating real expectations and real differentiation between people who've got internet access and people who are living 3 to a bedroom, which is the case for many of the kids, you know, with no laptop. But part of it is us working together as the professionals and saying, yeah, we do want to help. We do want to help parents. The union's launching a parental website. We're hoping that's going live on Monday, which is again reaching out to parents and saying, here's some ideas, tell us what you think, but we want to engage in some dialogue about that.
Can I just say finally, just a shout out that on the 19th of April, there's going to be a Celebrating Education Zoom conference where we're going to be looking at radical pedagogies. So there'll be more information coming out about that, but that's going to be really, really exciting.
And can I just answer one question I've seen here? Will we have to open the schools during the summer holiday? I don't know if you saw, but there was a letter that was put on social media that said looked like it was from Gavin Williamson, saying that because the schools had been illegally closed, they'd have to be open during the summer holiday. That letter was sent on April the 1st, and it wasn't a real letter. There is no way that the schools are going to be open during the summer holiday. The kids absolutely need a break from everything else. There's no question of that being raised. We will not accept the idea that there has been a learning loss that has to be made up we're all working now, supporting the kids in the best way that we can. There will have to be a summer break. Where's Amanda gone?
I think we might have lost
We've lost our
Amanda.
chair.
Yeah, I think we have.
Yeah.
So I think it's approaching 5 o'clock now. We haven't been able to get through to all of your questions, but we've got a record of them all, and we will be using those to update our frequently asked questions. So as Kevin said, do go on the website. Oh, she's back.
I am here. I was muted.
Great.
Just very, very quickly, yes, absolutely, exactly what everyone has said. Thank you so much for your time. Kevin's last question was the one I was going to ask him to ask. We've heard that there's going to be some CPD from the union. Please do have a look at that. Please check our website. We couldn't get through all of the questions tonight, and rightly so. There's so many of you, and you're all dealing with lots of different things. Tonight was about organising and how collectively we can do stuff. If you have casework questions, which I know so many of you will, look at your membership card, find your secretary on the back and contact them and ask them the questions, and they will support you. There's the advice line via email and your regional offices. We need to make sure that you are not standing alone. As an NEU rep, you have the 500,000 plus, well, right, you know, nearly 500,000 people behind you, and we are a union, and that's what we do. Thank you so much for your support. Try and get some break over the weekend. And those of you that are managing a bit of an Easter next week, then please do have some respite for yourselves. Thank you so much. And I hope you're as proud as I am to be in the NEU. If you want to leave some comments on the chats, please do, as if you found this helpful. And we will look to be organising another one for you if you think it's worthwhile. Thank you so much for our contribution, and to Kevin and Mary, and to all of you. Thank you very much.
Please leave a comment and have a good weekend.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.